as I tend to do, especially on a Friday, I'm going to open today's show with a classic literary reference. So that's what I do here on Riter Radio. It's 225 episodes. If you didn't know that by now, I mean, what are you even doing here? What are you even doing tuning in if you're not expecting a classic literary reference to start the show? No, I'm thinking in terms of Charles Dickens at the moment. Best of times, worst of times. It's not really that. It's just I want to show you what it's like to have. I don't have a split personality. I don't have. Maybe it's this neurodivergence I keep hearing about. Maybe it's ADD. I don't know. I want to show you how right and how wrong I can be at the exact same time. You can be a smart person who's intelligent enough and paying attention, and if there's something at the tip of your tongue at all times. Here are two things that have crossed my mind in the last, let's say, 15 minutes, really. Half hour. I sat down here at 10 to 10 in the chair, ready to do the show. Or not, I'm never ready to do the show, but eventually the time comes. I have to turn the microphone on. The time has come. Here we are. And so I'm talking to you. But I want to show you how smart I can be and how stupid I can be at the exact same time. It's just the product of thinking too much. So whatever that name is, whatever the word is for that, that's the thing I have. Overthinking. Having an idea, and it just goes, and then there's another layer of that, and there's another layer of that, and there's another layer of that. If you listen to the show at all, you know that's how I think. That's how I act. First one. I log on. I launch the stream. I start playing music. That's what I do. When I'm almost ready to do the show, I turn on the stream, start playing music. New addition in the last couple days is the YouTube chat, which is sitting right on my screen, and I actually get to see the thing. And right after I logged on, a guy, Nick, says, Friday. I was like, oh, yeah, Friday. I got to play the Friday song. Okay, that one's easy. I'm not bragging about that one. Seeing the word Friday and going, oh, yeah, it's Friday. That's just a listener being helpful. Thank you. But then he said, Zootopia ad just played. I've only seen bits and pieces, but the sloth at the DMV is a 10 out of 10 character. And I wrote, come on. Now, you have to know the movie or even just the trailer that's been running. But immediately after he said, Zootopia ad just played, I've only seen bits and pieces, sloth at the DMV is a 10 out of 10 character, I wrote, can't agree. Then I gave it 5 seconds, and I wrote, more. Come on. I'm not going to do anything funnier than that all day, all show. That was a good one. A little precious. But if you know the movie, the character speaks very slowly. He works at the DMV, which makes it funny. And this guy said, he's a 10 out of 10. And I said, can't agree. More. Which goes with the thing in the trailer. In the first movie, when he works at the DMV, or he or she, I don't know. Let's call it a he. The whole comedic structure of the sloth is that he says a thing, and then you think he means a thing, but he's so slow at speaking that the last word that changes the entire meaning of it takes forever to come out. So you think, oh, Brad doesn't agree about the character, but then I couldn't agree more. So that was funny. So that's how good I am. That's Hollywood. I cannot believe. Once this thing hits the podcast version, I would expect that clip to get to the Pixar. That's not Pixar, whatever it is. It'll get to Hollywood, and I'll probably have a bunch of offers to come out and punch up some scripts, I would think, because that was a really funny joke. So that's me bragging about how my brain works. Now let me unbrag. What's that called? What's unbragging called? So I'm going to unbrag right now. I was thinking about the music on the show. And recently we automated the process of the music. So for the first 210 or so episodes of this show, I've been playing music during the breaks. And I choose all the songs. And then it finally occurred to me, hey, you've been building this Spotify playlist of all the songs from the show. You can always add to it, but generally speaking, if I just would like to fill 10 minutes with music, I can just let Spotify randomize the whole thing. So I've been doing that for, let's say, a week and a half. I don't know, 2 weeks. A week? I don't know how long I've been using the random thing, but I like it. It's one fewer thing that I have to think about during the show, and that's helpful. Today, this happened right around when the guy was like Friday. And I was like, oh yeah, Friday, I got to pick a song. What's nice about Spotify, even if it's going random, you can go through, you can find the song you want in that playlist, play that one, and then when you let go, it'll just go back to randomness, which is nice. But then I started thinking about how, all right, I had to remember, because I was still scrolling through, looking for other things, if I wanted to choose something else, or if I just want to let it play, and I see that Friday was song number, let's say, 44. So then I thought, 44, you know what we could do? We could there's a site called random.org that is perfect for picking numbers, picking anything, sorting things. I do it a lot. I'll do it with, like, my kids. Trying to decide who's taking the first shower, let's say. And I can make a little spinny wheel. It's a Zach, Nate, Drew. And it lands on one of them, and then it eliminates that one, and you spin again. And there's all this cool stuff you can do at random.org. It sounds like a super nerdy site you wouldn't want to use, but you do want to use it. And I started thinking about how I can use that and spin the wheel, and then whatever number it lands on, then I go find that number, and then I hit play on the Spotify list. Do you notice the problem with all of the thinking I just did? Do you notice the waste of time? What I just did was invent a random playlist. I invented randomizing a playlist. I was randomizing it, then I decided to unrandomize it, then I started thinking, wouldn't that be cool if it was random? And then I devised a plan to use another piece of software to randomize something that was already randomized a minute ago until I stopped randomizing it. In fact, take that back. It was randomized and will resume being randomized if I just leave it alone. But I tried to come up with a solution. I came up with a really good one. It was fun. I had to figure out how to get the wheel onto the screen so you could see it, and then I'm going to make a list, and it's going to match up, and the number is going to go with this. They already did that. That's the thing you're already using, Brad. You're wasting your time. So, yeah, I can come up with the sloth joke on the fly, but then when it comes to something I'm already doing, my brain is also computing another way to more clunkily adopt the exact same process and just make it harder. So that's what I'm dealing with. Day in, day out, that's how things work for me. So there we are. All right, it is Friday. Thank you for pointing that out in the chat, Nick. I appreciate it. I also appreciate anyone who is participating in the chat. I'm sliding over toward the YouTube side of things, the dark side. It just makes more sense. I've still got the Mixler app going. There tend to be, a couple people at a time listening on there. We will, I think, eventually phase that out because I'm already thinking about YouTube every day and Spotify every day. I don't really need to. It's fine. It's easy to just turn on. But at some point, it's like, what's it for? So if you're listening on Mixler, if you're still using Mixler, I highly recommend finding me on YouTube if you like the live version of the show. If you're just going back to the archives, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify. Don't worry about what you do right now. And I say right now, speaking at 10:23 a.m., but if you're listening to the podcast version, you've already got it figured out. You're fine if you do do that one. But this is a warning to anybody who is utilizing Mixler as the primary means to consume the live version of Riter Radio every day at 10. Wean yourself off that. Let's say New Year, no Mixler. How about that? We'll go through December. You've got time. You've got time to figure the rest of it out. You can do audio only. You can put on YouTube and just listen. You probably can do it. I don't know. I was going to say you could use the YouTube Music app and stream through that, but I don't know if podcasts are included or live streams are included in YouTube Music. So you've got time to figure it out. Today's the 12th of December. I won't shut down Mixler until January, if I do shut it down. But it just seems like one extra thing that I shouldn't need to do. So work on that. Okay. It is Riter Radio. It's episode 225. Scott Wilson will join me today at 11 o'clock. This is the second consecutive week that I have gone with the new format, which is chaos. Yes, it stems from, I printed out the exact same sheet from episodes 1 through episodes, episode like 210. And for the last 10, I have sloppy notes like this. Just writing stuff. There we go. That's it. That's a show today. A lot of that's leftover stuff from yesterday. This is yesterday and today, honestly. So that's the kind of ship I've been running because I've been focusing on the other stuff. That I spent, let's say, 200 episodes focusing on the content of the show and adding little bits and pieces at a time with regard to the overall structure. Like, think of this as two different things. It's a show and it's a business. And I've been focused on the show. I've decided to kind of wing it on the show lately in order to fix the structure of things. So you get nicer things. It looks better. The lighting's better. I'm going to continue improving that. I need more. And we've got the chat going now. And we've got the music organized. And I'm working on that kind of stuff, which leaves me less time to completely map out what I'm doing with the show. But honestly, this is kind of a better environment for me. So I wind up with, I've got notes in my phone, I've got this thing over here, I've got stuff up on my screen, but I don't have the show mapped out the way that I did for much of the first 200 episodes. But I think it's fine. It's not crazy. This is an improv. Come on, try it again, Brad. Start over. I know it's Friday. You even had coffee this morning. I don't usually get cup. I improvise. Improvisation. This is good. The word I'm trying to say is improvisational. Improvisational. That's the word. Improvisational. My brain was trying to add extra syllables in there. See what I mean? I'm trapped in here. I live with this every day. You tune into it on purpose. You're insane, too. Pro Football Hall of Fame finalists came out a couple days ago. That's been sitting on my screen for at least 48 hours, maybe longer. Phillip Rivers is back in the NFL. What's the most surprising thing to you about Phillip Rivers signing with the Colts this week? Sorry, still a little sick. So I'm sniffling. I try to avoid it. Hold on. Let me. I try to make you hear it as little as possible, but it's there. It's there when I'm talking for 2 hours. The most surprising thing for me about Rivers is that I can't believe he's been out of the league for 5 years. The last NFL game he played in, I believe, was a loss to the Bills in the playoffs. And we're coming up on 5 years for that. Rivers is a finalist for the Hall of Fame. Yet when he popped back up, I thought, he was there 2 years ago. Why not? I can't believe that's 5 years ago. I know the Colts have been churning quarterbacks. And off the top of my head, I don't know how well I would do, so I'm not even going to try. I think I'll look it up. I'm going to look up the Colts. But it feels like they've been doing, basically since the Andrew Luck problem popped up on them, which was him retiring just before the season started. In fact, I'm going to say famously, but in my mind, when I think of Andrew Luck retiring, I think of the fact that we had our fantasy football draft literally that day. And we do our draft in the Saratoga area. It happened to be at J Street Pub in Schenectady that year. And the draft ended. And then we walked down the street and went to, I believe it's called Rivers Casino. And we were hanging out at a blackjack table, I presume. I can picture where we were. I can't imagine we were playing anything but blackjack. But blackjack, considering everyone was participating and not everybody in our group. Like, I don't play craps, so it wasn't that. I remember the one time in my life I was at a craps table, and I had no idea what was going on. I've never learned it. I'm never going to. I've heard it's the best. I've heard it's the only way to enjoyably lose money. Like, if you're at a casino and you lose in blackjack, it sucks. If you lose at a slot machine, obviously, that's terrible. But I've been told losing at craps can be fun. I'm not going to find out. I lost at craps. I didn't have fun at all. I only did it one time. I didn't understand what was going on. I'd like to. It seems like something you could learn pretty quickly, what with the internet and all. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's okay. So I'm sure we weren't playing craps. I think we were playing blackjack. But this is an hour removed from somebody spending, $36 on Andrew Luck in the fantasy draft as his quarterback. And then we were at the table when we found out, hey, he just retired. Like, seriously? It's worse than when Jamal Lewis blew out his knee 3 days after our draft or whatever it was. This one was immediate. Like, all right, draft is done. All right, your quarterback's out. What? So anyway, since then, they've been, as the kids would say, streaming quarterbacks year-to-year basis. They tried on the Anthony Richardson thing. That obviously has not gone especially well. That said, if he was healthy, he probably would have just jumped in as starter. He's not. And so Phillip Rivers has been invited back to the Colts. After I do this quarterback thing, I'm going to look and see what the status is. Because when I first heard he signed, it was to the practice squad. But I guess that's just the easiest way to get a guy in the building, and then you figure out the rest of it. At the press conference, it didn't sound like, I'm going to work out and see how it goes. Like, I can't believe I'm back. This, it's a tremendous opportunity, and I'm glad they called, and here we are. I don't know what that does for his Hall of Fame candidacy. Does it set him back? I remember there was a time when Bill Parcells was a candidate for the Hall of Fame, and it didn't make any sense to me why he kept getting rejected. And it turned out, information from the inside, we know some people who have been a part of the voting process, most notably Mark Gaughan, Bob's brother. Bob's a regular on the show. Mark, I'm sure, has been on the show. Mark's awesome. He's retired. He played in the Back Tee Golf Classic with me, and my buddy Josh and Thomas Ian Nicholas from American Pie and Rookie of the Year. This is a couple months ago. Obviously, it's snowing. It's December. This wasn't yesterday. But we did that in September, and it was awesome. And Mark is great. But Mark was president of the Pro Football Writers Association for a while. He was in the room. He's the guy. The next time we have Bob Gaughan on, I won't remember to do this, but in theory, I would like to ask him, who are the guys that you would say Mark is responsible for getting into the Hall of Fame? And I don't remember if it goes all the way back to Jim Kelly, who was elected in 2002. But it goes back a while. Kelly got in pretty quickly, but he might have had something to do with Marv Levy. He might have had something to do with Kelly, but certainly the later era, Andre Reed, sneeze. I'm thinking by Monday I'll be done with the sniffling and the sneezing and the coughing and the sore throat and the clearing of the throat and all that stuff, I think. As predicted, symptoms are progressing through me. Mark was around all of these elections. And I remember wondering aloud why the hell Bill Parcells wasn't in, and it was out of fear that he was going to return. Crazy circumstances can happen. Mario Lemieux, they waived the delay for him, put him right in the Hall of Fame. Then he bounced back from cancer and then came back into the league and was a Hall of Famer skating around in the league. You're not going to take him out of the Hall of Fame for coming back from cancer. That's just mean. So you just dealt with it. Bill Belichick has only been out of the NFL for 2 years. He's already on the ballot. And obviously standards must be different. Either they always have been or they change them for coaches as opposed to players. But Phillip Rivers is a guy who waited the 5 years to become eligible. He will, I believe, go into the Hall of Fame. But I think him signing with the Colts almost wipes him off of the ballot for this year. As they're selecting finalists, let's not put him in. If for no other reason, then what if he comes in with the Colts and wins the Super Bowl? Now it changes. No, that doesn't make sense because it's not like it's what if he comes in and sticks around and plays for them next year and wins the Super Bowl. And now we've got a bust in there with the whole description of why he got in. And then there's all this extra story. You just don't want to do it. So I think this precludes him from getting in. Not technically necessarily, but if I'm a voter and we're getting really down to the nitty-gritty of we can only put in X number of players, am I putting in the guy who's still playing? If he considered playing this year, he'll consider playing next year. So back to my original point, the thing that surprised me the most about Phillip Rivers signing with the Colts this week is not that he's 44 years old and that he's immediately the oldest player in the league. Aaron Rodgers is like, look at that old guy. What's he trying to do? It's just that I can't believe he's been gone for 5 years. The streaming process of quarterbacks. Their leading passer each of the last, since Andrew Luck. All right, Andrew Luck's their leading passer in 2018. In 2019, it's Jacoby Brissett. Who, my God, he's been around the league for quite some time, hasn't he? I mean, Brissett I think of as the Patriots backup, and then he's just been kind of everywhere. All right, so Luck's their leading passer in 18. Brissett in 19. Rivers in 20. So that's COVID year. That's playoff game against the Bills. They lost in the wild card round to Buffalo. The next year, it's Carson Wentz. See, it feels like the Carson Wentz year was last year, but it was 5 years ago. Oh, my God. Or 4 years ago. Matt Ryan did his time. That's right. Gardner Minshew was their leading passer in 2023. I don't feel like he was the guy they were leaning on. I feel like they must have, maybe Ryan was there still and got hurt. I don't remember. And then it's Anthony Richardson last year and Daniel Jones this year until he suffered his second major injury. Well, I guess the first one wasn't major. He was playing with a broken fibula. Is that right? I think it's fibula. Non-weight-bearing bone in the leg. He was playing with that in one leg and then the Achilles tear in the other. So he's out. And now Phillip Rivers is in. Okay, so now I'm going to check news on Rivers because I said I would do that. See, I can remember the stuff. AI was right in assessing me when it said that I go on a lot of tangents, but that I always bring it back. I don't always bring it back. I usually bring it back. Because usually once I get to the end of the point, I remember what led me there. It doesn't always work that way. Rivers, what was I looking for on Rivers? Oh, news, just news. Phillip Rivers news. Let's see what we know about whether Rivers, if you're like a fantasy player, you probably already know the answer to this, but I do not. Cam Newton says, Phillip Rivers Colts signing is a slap in my face. Okay. Phillip Rivers' former teammate expresses one concern he has with his return. Tom Brady on Rivers' comeback. I certainly could still play quarterback in the NFL. I'm so glad I looked this up. All the usual suspects popping out. I just want to know if he's going to play. Phillip Rivers, Sunday status. How about that? Answer me that. Is he starting this week? Bleacher Report from yesterday. After signing, the Colts have not ruled out the possibility of the 44-year-old starting Sunday's game at the Seahawks. Shane Steichen made it clear the team's still evaluating who will be under center. So we'll see how the week goes. We'll get to the end of the week and make that decision. But he's there. He's in camp. And I don't know if he's officially on the team yet or if he's practice squad. And then if they choose to, that's probably what it is. He's probably on the practice squad, and then they could choose to elevate him, as we've seen happen quite a bit around the NFL and certainly with the Bills this year. So, all right, there's the Rivers status. We're closing that one down. Connecting Rivers to this other thing, there are 26 total candidates in the modern era players category reaching the semifinalist stage for possible election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. No one, I take that back. I believe of these 26 players, one has ever played for the Bills, which means our good friend Reuben Brown has been eliminated as a finalist for this year. And Steve Tasker has been eliminated as a finalist. I believe they both made it to semifinal. Happens on a regular basis with both of them. And not looking great. Now, I felt like I was watching and hanging out with a Hall of Fame O-lineman in Reuben Brown. And I think he's just been punished by the fact that his teams didn't win. I mean, he was there. He's a rookie in 95, I believe. Yeah, I think, because I would have been a rookie in 96 had I elected to go into the NFL. I chose not to. Wanted to pursue a career in AM radio. So I didn't, but I would have been a class behind. I would have come in with Eric Moulds and Jake Plummer and stuff. But I believe Ruben was 1 year ahead of me. But the whole time I was doing shows with him, and he just went to the Pro Bowl every year, and he knew everybody, and everybody loved him, and it just seemed right. And I was like, wow, my friend's going to be a Hall of Famer, and so far he's not. I've never been to the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. In fact, I've kind of never been to the Hall of Fame. The only time I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we didn't really even go in. We weren't there for that. We were there for other Cleveland-y things. But the first night we arrived as a family, took a ride down to Canton to check it out, just go look at it. And we knew it was closing, half an hour after we got there. So we went in and went into the gift shop and went on the little field they had there and took a bunch of pictures. But I've never been to the Hall of Fame when it's open. But I've said for a long time that when Reuben Brown gets in, that's the one I'm going to go to. Because I actually know the guy, pretty well. As opposed to just somebody I'm cheering for. That would be my friend getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'd do that. But I don't see that trip on the horizon. So I guess I got to make friends with, who am I going to, I'm not going to make friends with any NFL players now. That'd be creepy. Reuben and I were about the same age. We could go and hang out together, go out to bars. We had fun nights. I was at his house a couple times. I took pictures sitting in the sidecar of his motorcycle. I still have that somewhere. I should start using that. It's Reuben on a Harley and me in a sidecar with a helmet on. I think I had a helmet on. I had a helmet or a microphone or both. I don't know. We were just doing promotional stuff for our show. It's like, yeah, come on out. I got a photographer coming over. You can sit in the sidecar of my Harley. Brad, tell me about what's going to flash before my eyes when I realize my broadcasting career is actually over. That I'm done doing this. And it'll just be bumping into Wayne Gretzky, accidentally making fun of the Ottawa Senators while sitting next to some Ottawa Senators along with Nick Bakay in the booth at the arena in the playoffs. Accidentally telling Daryl Shannon that he's been traded to the Atlanta Thrashers while hanging out with him at Thursday in the Square while Soul Asylum's playing or something. That's the stuff I'm going to remember. And going to Reuben's house and sitting in a sidecar getting my picture taken. All right, the finalists for the Hall of Fame. Willie Anderson, offensive tackle, Bengals and Ravens. Drew Brees, I'll make a ding. Oh, we could use the thing. I'm not going to reject anyone because if you made it onto this list, somebody likes you. And you are liked by the group more than Reuben Brown and Steve Tasker. So to take any of these guys out of there is me doing a disservice, or it would be out of ignorance. But I'm not afraid to say yes to people. I'm not going to say no to anybody. I don't think. There might be somebody on this list that makes me think, no way. But what am I missing here? Pallets. There we go. This is tough when the sneeze keeps coming. I apologize. Hang on. Do a show with a sore throat, it's one thing. You do a show with a stuffy nose, it's another thing. Doing a throw with sneezing, very distracting. First thing I think of is the firecracker scene in Boogie Nights, where you're just trying to have a conversation and just boom. It's boom. At least in that, there's one guy talking, and then the explosions. Here, the explosions are coming from the guy. It's like a mini Tourette's, having to sneeze every couple of paragraphs. You feel it like the tickle in your nose, and then it's, I'll be fine. All right, here's the point. I'm going to go through these finalists for the Hall of Fame, and I won't reject anybody. Rejecting someone would sound like that. But I will say this. That means, obviously, I would anticipate we're talking about a first-time Hall of Famer. All right, so we've got Willie Anderson, offensive tackle for the Bengals and Ravens. Drew Brees, quarterback for the Chargers and Saints from 01 to 20. He's first or second in a zillion different categories. It's his first time eligible Drew Brees is going to the Hall of Fame immediately. Especially, well, he would have beaten out Rivers, but it's Brees, Manning, Rivers all eligible at the same time. I guess Roethlisberger must have stuck around an extra year or two beyond them, so he's not on the list. But remember that quarterback class of 04? When Manning went first to the Chargers, Rivers went fourth to the Giants, then they swapped. Roethlisberger went 10th-ish, and then the Bills got J.P. Lossman. I was like, oh, no. I have audio somewhere of me going, oh, no, I hate this. I hate today. Because you wanted one of those three, but you didn't get one. So you're like, let me trade up and get the fourth guy. Except it's the dude who did nothing but spread offense and always played out of the shotgun back when that was not okay. And was at Tulane. And, it didn't work. So there were 4 quarterbacks drafted in the first round that year. 3 of them went to the Hall of Fame, or 3 of them are in the conversation for the Hall of Fame. They're all going into the Hall of Fame this year or otherwise. Not yet for Roethlisberger. We got Lossman. So 4 first-round quarterbacks, 3 of them Hall of Fame, 1 of them a Buffalo Bill. The other one a Buffalo Bill, not one of the 3 that almost implied that we did something right. We did not. All right. Lomas Brown, offensive tackle for 5 teams. Lions, Cardinals, Browns, Giants, and Bucks. That sounds like a Hall of Famer to me. Played from 85 to 02. This is his first time as a semifinalist, despite being out of the league for 23 years. It's a good sign that somebody made a pretty strong argument in favor of Lomas Brown. I felt like he was talked about, well, the same way I felt about Reuben Brown. He's not getting in, so I don't know. All right, Jahari Evans, not Jahari, Jari. Yeah, I think they said Jahari, but Jahri Evans. He's a guard for the Saints and Packers. Always heard good things about him. Larry Fitzgerald is, to me, yes. All right, granted, I'm hitting this on skill players so far, but that sounds like he's a first-timer, and I can't imagine he's going to have to wait a year. Although things do get backed up for wide receivers, I think Fitzgerald, especially playing for one team for 16 or 17 years, he's got all their records, obviously. Not a super storied franchise, the Cardinals. But I would think he's a lock. So Brees and Fitzgerald so far. Frank Gore. Frank Gore is statistically, by accumulation, one of the top backs in NFL history. But I don't remember him ever being a top 2 or 3 back for even a season in the NFL. Incredible career to hang on in that way. Just thinking about all the things he went through, going back to his days battling with injury at Miami and McGahee and all the stuff that happened back there. He was with the Niners forever. He's with the Colts for a few years. He was with the Dolphins for 1, the Bills for 1, the Jets for 1. This is his first time as a semifinalist. His statistics put him in the conversation. I think his lack of flash, his lack of star power or whatever, bumps him from being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Eventually, I want to say in a down year where there's not a list. Every year the list looks like this. Every year the list is first-round players who went to 8 Pro Bowls or won 2 Super Bowls, and it's that. And it's just going to keep refilling. Players are going to keep retiring. It's tough. But Gore is, you couldn't argue if he got there, but there's a fame element to Hall of Fame, at least in my mind. And I don't think Frank Gore was ever a star in the league at a position where they do have stars. Like Lomas Brown was never a star in the league because he's a tackle. So he was never he's not in the commercials. He's not selling you soft drinks and shoes. Maybe Chunky Soup. Well, Lomas Brown for Chunky Soup. I can see that. But even that they use like McNabb. Skill players for that. All right, so I'm going to go no there on Frank Gore. Rodney Harrison. He's a guy that, for me, this is the smell test. Did it feel like I was watching a Hall of Famer when I was watching him play? I think, ooh, look out for that guy. And the answer on Harrison is yes. but I'm not going to pretend to have ever broken down game film on safety play during his time with the Chargers or the Patriots. When he was on the field, you noticed him. When he was on the other team, you hated him. That worked for me. But this is his 5th time as a semifinalist. And there was a year where he wasn't one. So he's been on the ballot for quite some time and hasn't made it through yet. So I don't anticipate this is the year necessarily. Those guys pop through eventually, once in a while. If you told me prior to reading this list that Rodney Harrison is already in the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't have said, that's a joke or anything. I would have thought, yeah, okay, I could see him in a gold jacket. I guess I just haven't. But I can picture it. Torrey Holt, wide receiver, Rams and a little bit of Jaguars. Rams 99-08, Jaguars. That's he's been a semifinalist 12 times. I was gonna say I don't think that's a lock. It certainly isn't. He keeps making it to this list and not going past it. The problem is you're in a tough class, right? There's other wide receivers that have to get in. And you're like, okay, not this year, Torrey Holt. Next year. They're like, all right, Torrey Holt or Larry Fitzgerald. And Torrey Holt's like, damn it. All right, I'll just wait. And then another one's going to come up. And then another one's going to come up. So it's tough. 12 years as a semifinalist. Always a semifinalist, never a bride, I think is the very popular phrase you hear in American culture. Luke Kuechly. I wanted to hit the chime. Luke Kuechly is probably a top 2 player in the history of the Carolina Panthers. It's a brief history compared to, relative to other teams. But they've been around since 95. And I recently asked, because my kids do this kind of thing, my kids sit around and talk about who's the best player in the history of each team. And, of course, they're biased toward whoever they saw on YouTube yesterday. But when it got to Carolina, they didn't know what to say. So I texted my buddy Chris, who lives down there, like, who is the defining player in Carolina Panthers history? And he said, no-brainer, Cam Newton. But it sounds like Kuechly's probably next. So I would have almost said yes. He had a shortened career, injury issues. I think he was one of those, you know what, I probably could play, but I'm going to keep my brain and body at least here. I've done enough damage. I'm cool. He played from 2012 through 2019. And like I said, I almost hit the bell to say yes, put him in. But he was a semifinalist last year and didn't get in, so I can't do that. I can't just ring the bell if you're not a first-timer. Clearly, we've shown that you can get into that room and be voted out of that room. And it's not like you get voted out. You just don't get voted in. But we've seen that Kuechly can get bumped, so I can't hit the bell. Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl winner, first overall draft pick in 2004, played 16 years with the same team, and it's his second time as a semifinalist. So I can't ring the bell on him. I never loved Eli Manning. I think collectively, although it's not said out loud too often, he's respected, but it's kind of thought of as fluky. At least I think of it as fluky, but I think that might be the consensus, that it's fluky that dude is a 2-time Super Bowl champion, both times as an underdog, upsetting the Patriots. That adds to the lore. That's Super Bowl upset is how Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer. He had the fame part down, not the numbers. That's what got him in. So there's an argument, obviously, to be made for Eli Manning. He checked all the boxes. What else did you want him to do? I don't know. Make me inspire confidence when I see him on the field, I guess is what I would say. His numbers show that he should be there. But he's already been, I won't say rejected. He's a semifinalist last year, didn't get in. Semifinalist this year. Can't ring the bell there. Robert Mathis is in his 5th attempt here as a semifinalist. Defensive end, linebacker, pass rush, edge, they would call him today. An edge. Played from 03 to 16 with the Colts. Phillip Rivers, as mentioned, this is his first time eligible. Spent the vast majority of his career with the Chargers, drafted 4th overall by the Giants in 04. Then they swapped for Manning. Rivers was with the Chargers in San Diego and then in Los Angeles from 04 to 19, and then finished up with the Colts. Semifinalist, but back in the league as a member of the Colts right now, so I think that could get in the way of the vote. We'll see. Steve Smith Sr. Here's another guy that if you told me he was already in, I would say, okay, yeah, sure. This will be his 5th year as a semifinalist. Wide receiver with the Panthers forever, 01 through 13, and then the Ravens for 3 years after that. Can't ring the bell there. Terrell Suggs. Flashy, fun. Again, they would call him an edge now. They've got him listed as linebacker / defensive end, but was dominant with the Ravens as a part of that crazy defense just after they won the Super Bowl. They had won, and it's like, this defense is amazing. It's got Lewis and Reed. Saragusa was there. I'm trying to think who else was up front. But they had just won almost exclusively on defense 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier, and then they add this guy, Terrell Suggs, who was there from 03 to 18 with the Cardinals for a year, which I think he went to ASU, so that would make sense, just moving back out there. And then with the Chiefs in the same year, actually. So Ravens for most of his career, then split one season with the Cards and Chiefs. He's a 2-time semifinalist, so we can't ring the bell. Fred Taylor was the 5th best running back in the NFL for 8 years or something, right? Does that sound about accurate? Never number 1, 2, maybe 3. Maybe he was 3. But he hung out as about the 5th best linebacker for 5, 6, 7 years. Mostly with the Jaguars, a couple seasons at the end with the Patriots. He's been a semifinalist 7 times. He's not getting in. Earl Thomas, safety, Legion of Boom. Mostly Seahawks, 1 year with Ravens. This is his 2nd year as a semifinalist. Can't put him in. Can't ring the bell for him anyway. Vinatieri, Adam Vinatieri. Is it still one kicker in the Hall of Fame? He's Jan Stenerud. When I was a kid, that was the answer to the trivia question. Who's the only kicker? Only primary kicker, because Blanda was a kicker and also a quarterback and stuff. But back in the day, anyway, it was Jan Stenerud only. Is Vinatieri next? Probably. This is his 2nd time as a semifinalist. 96 through 05 with the Patriots. 06 through 19 with the Colts. Several Super Bowls in there. Several monster playoff games. Very clutch. That's not about the guy. That's about the position. If you're making that decision. Like, all right, is this the year that the talent level is so low that we can disregard actual football and put a kicker in? Maybe. Hines Ward. Again, I would have guessed he's in. I felt like he was not a dominant performer because he's a little undersized, just hard worker, excellent player for excellent franchise forever. And if you told me, yeah, he's been in for a while, I'd say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. He was awesome. Hines Ward has been a semifinalist 10 times. 2017 through now, he's a finalist. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. And again, maybe it's because the Steelers' colors involve yellow, but I can picture him in the jacket, and not just I could see what that would look like. No, like I can picture seeing him on television in Canton congratulating other people wearing the jacket. So I would have told you he was in, but instead he's a 10-time semifinalist. Reggie Wayne. Reggie Wayne's an interesting one because Reggie Wayne was very good for a very long time playing with an already Hall of Famer in Peyton Manning with the Colts. 14 seasons as a wide receiver with the Colts. When you think of that Colts team and Manning, the first receiver you think of as like his right-hand man is Marvin Harrison. He's already in. Their careers, I believe, overlapped a little bit, but then late era Manning, it was all Reggie Wayne. And then Andrew Luck and his success was all Reggie Wayne. But did you ever feel like you were what? Like, I almost feel like Reggie Wayne is the exact guy to talk about at the top tier of not Hall of Fame. Like, you could be, if you're Reggie Wayne and down, you're out. And if you're just above Reggie Wayne, you're in. It's kind of like Frank Gore's hanging out with Reggie Wayne. Accumulated numbers over a lengthy career, which is super admirable too. But that fame, that flash, that thing that you need for me to ring the bell, you're like, yeah, definitely. Not there. So 7 times as a semifinalist for him. Richmond Webb. Richmond Webb, I mean, he was John Hannah to me, in part because he was dealing with Bruce Smith. But we heard about him all the time. We always heard about that matchup. It was always this Pro Bowler against that Pro Bowler during the big 90s run for the Bills. And I find it crazy. Not that he's not in, but that he's a 2-time semifinalist, and the first time was last year. And this is the modern era thing. So what changed that Richmond Webb couldn't make it into the top 25, 6, whatever it is? From the time he retired in 2002 until last year, and now he's there 2 years in a row. Maybe they have a new writer in Miami that presents, and he's better than the other guy, who I would assume would have been Armando Salguero, but I don't know. Vince Wilfork, semifinalist 5 times. I think no. Why am I picturing him in overalls with no shirt under it from... Did they do a season of Hard Knocks? They must have. Is there a Patriots Hard Knocks? I can't imagine Belichick letting them in the door. Anyway, 04, yeah, they had to, because I can picture his wife. Yeah, I know too much about Vince Wilfork. I forgot about, but I see his name, and suddenly I see him in overalls, and his the blonde wife with the round face looked like she should be Vince Wilfork's wife. 5 times as a semifinalist. No reason to assume that's going to happen. Kevin Williams. Remember the Williams wall? Pat Williams, formerly of the Bills, had like a breakout season or 2 standing next to Ted Washington. It's like, now we're going to lose him. And he went to the Vikings, and suddenly they were awesome because of these 2 massive dudes named Williams in the middle. Well, Pat's name hasn't come up, but Kevin's has. First time as a semifinalist for Kevin Williams. Retired in 2015 as a member of the Seahawks. But prior to that, member of the Saints. Mostly Vikings, 1 year Seahawks, 1 year Saints. First time as a semifinalist. I'm interested there. I'm not going to ring the bell, but first time semifinalist for a guy who retired 10 years ago. Sounds like there's a movement there that I wouldn't want to step in the way of. Here's another one I would have assumed is in the Hall of Fame, but instead is just a 3rd-time finalist. First in 2014, then last year, now this year, Steve Wisniewski. Guard for the Raiders, only the Raiders. 13 years, I believe, with them. I would have guessed he's in. He was talked about as if he was a Hall of Famer the entire time he played. Jason Witten. This is his first time as a semifinalist, and I'm not quite ringing the bell. I have a feeling that's a yes. Witten, a massive part of really a tight end lineage with the Cowboys for a long time. They've always got kind of the same dude, and he was that dude from 03 to 19, like carrying the torch for Jay Novacek and leading into wherever we are right now with Jake Anderson, but there was somebody else in between who's slipping my mind. But they've had the same guy at that position forever, and it was him for a long time. First year as a semifinalist, that would not surprise me. Not ringing the bell, but it wouldn't surprise me. 2 more. Darren Woodson. He's been a semifinalist 10 times. Most years since 2015. Spent 92 through 03 with the Cowboys. So good career length there, but 10 times as a semifinalist. There's no reason for me to ring a bell and say this is the year he breaks through. And then finally, Marshall Yanda, O-lineman for the Ravens. I don't understand O-line play. I just know the names I consistently hear, and he's one whose name was said aloud often during his pro career and during broadcast. And if he's heard, good news, you're playing the Ravens without Marshall Yanda, that kind of thing. I can't ring the bell for him. So I rang the bell twice. I would say you're going to see Drew Brees get in. You're going to see Larry Fitzgerald get in. No one else on here is absolutely, positively yes. All right, we did that. I can close. That's the tab I can close. It's been open for 3 days. It's beyond 11 o'clock. I'm supposed to call Scott 4 minutes ago, which means we're going to play music for a couple minutes while I get him on the horn, and then we'll resume. If you're yapping in the chat, as I see many of you are, I will get to that. I just wanted to get through that whole thing before 11 o'clock. Failed anyway, but that was the plan, was to get through that list, then take a break, then call Scott Wilson. And I messed that up. It's all right. We'll survive. I need to move that. I need to close that. I need to accelerate through the end of that song. I need to get back to the Riter Radio playlist. We're just going to go with shuffle on this thing and see what happens. I guess we'll hear the last couple seconds of Friday. Fair enough. Be right back.
Let's check in with Riter Radio's senior football correspondent, Scott Wilson.
I apologize for the delay. First real tech glitch we've had so far today. I could hear Scott. He couldn't hear me. I had to reboot my phone. I think we're good now. So we're connected to our good friend and senior football correspondent, Scott Wilson. What's up, Scott?
What's up, man?
Sorry about the delay. I don't mean to waste your time, but here we are. It's Friday. It's episode 225, and we're live. What's on your mind? Caller, go ahead.
Let's go to Scott in the car.
Yeah, Scott's somewhere. What's happening with you?
So, yeah, it's just this is a big weekend.
Oh, the music came back. The music came back. Hold on, I can fix that. Shut up. Got it. Okay. Good. It's a big weekend, he said before the music interrupted.
Yeah, well, it's a big weekend for the Bills. I mean, this is the
season.
This is the division game, and I don't know. I don't have a certain feeling about it, but I do feel like this is setting itself up to be and New England really thinks highly of themselves, and so does everybody else. And if you look back at the NFL, this is usually one of those weeks and types of games where the established veteran and the established team usually can make a statement.
Don't forget about me kind of deal.
Right. How many times did we see like, ooh, the Vikings are good this year and they're going to play Peyton Manning, who has lost 2 of 3. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Now, I think Josh Allen and his boys here have a chance to kind of do that again, and it just feels to me like it's kind of setting up for that. There's a lot of people, and Drake May's had a great year. There are a lot of people in New England that have really comfortably slid right back into that. This is just where they are going to be for
for sure.
And I'm not really sold that that's the case. They're getting a good season from their quarterback, and they're getting a bump from having good, consistent coaching. But, I still think when the rubber meets the road, the Bills are probably the better team. And with all the mistakes that the Bills made in that first game, I still think had the opportunity to win it. So, this is an opportunity here for the Bills to really, because I think the Bills with this win really turn the screws on a younger team and put the pressure on these last 3-4 weeks of the season to try and hold on to the division.
I haven't thought about it.
I'm not sure if they are really I'm not sure if their organization and their team as it's comprised right now is really in the mode or the phase of their development to be able to withstand that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say in the Bills weight class, which I think would have been an appropriate way to put it. Just young. I'd have to look back, but remember when it was the Mac Jones-led Patriots and they beat the Bills on the windiest day in recorded history or whatever it was, and nobody could throw the ball.
3 passes.
They threw 3 passes and they won. And there was sort of this, and it was probably Jones as a rookie, maybe his second year, and the sentiment was kind of like, well, that's over now. The Bill that was cute what the Bills did there for a bit, but now that we got our new quarterback, we're fine because we can just go into Orchard Park and beat the Bills. And it was such a fake game. And then I think it was probably the same year that the Bills then played them in the playoffs and executed a perfect offensive game and took care of them and just kind of went, yeah, we're not going away. Like you knocked us down. We're back, and now we're going to throttle you. And I believe in Drake May at this point in his career a lot more than I believe. Let me put it this way. At this point in his career, I believe that Drake May is going to have a really good career. Much more strongly than at this point in Mac Jones' career, I felt that he was going to have a good career. Drake May looks the part of a star in the NFL. It just doesn't mean you win every game, and it doesn't mean you overcome the reigning MVP and a guy who probably could have been MVP or certainly was in the conversation for most of the last 5 years. Josh Allen doesn't go away because there's a good quarterback on the other sideline. He's had a Patrick Mahomes problem in the playoffs, or the Bills have, but Josh doesn't back down from this. Going on the road is not a massive deterrent to the Bills here, coming away with the win. And this is something I've stressed quite a bit this week, and I don't know how much you've thought about it, or you might just go, yeah, obviously. But I want people to understand, yeah, you're going to spend this week hearing about how the Patriots can wrap up the East. And you're going to tune into that game, and they're going to be talking about how, you know, the hats and T-shirts are here, and they're ready to be the AFC East champions for the first time in 6 years. Let's not neglect what happens when it goes the other way, and suddenly the Bills, while not quite in the driver's seat, are certainly neck and neck with the Patriots if they trail them by a game with 3 games left each. All the Patriots games being in the conference, 2 of them in the division. Basically, if the Bills win here, they need to be 1 game better than New England over the last 3, and they'll be the AFC East champions for the 6th year in a row. So it seems like daunting. And it almost, I think the implication is that if the Bills don't win, the Patriots are still right there and about to clinch the division. And that's not the case at all. Everything flips on its head if the Bills can come out with a victory in Foxborough.
Yeah, it's there. I think Josh is going to be very excited to be in a hostile environment.
Yeah,
and be able to take these guys on and play. And I feel good about this week's game. I think that the Pats are due to take one here, and you know, I just don't think they're quite there yet. I think there's still something to the Bills, and there's still something to Josh Allen being on the other side of the line of scrimmage that can really get some stuff done. So, you know, for all of the holes and all of the weak spots that we constantly see with the Bills, they're still fine. They're still right there, and they're still in a position that if they can be the hot team going into the playoffs again, then you're right where you want it to be.
Well, especially in a year where there's no superpower. I mean, I haven't looked at Vegas odds or anything recently, but there's no prohibitive favorite in the AFC. There's no prohibitive favorite in the NFC. There's a group of 3, 4, 5 teams everybody's thinking about. But when it comes down to it, when you leave me with a group of 7 in the AFC, I'm going to revert to the one that I've seen do it, the one that's got a history, that's been through this process and isn't going to be shocked by a moment. And Josh Allen's not going to be shocked by a moment. Maybe in the Super Bowl, maybe that would be new, but an AFC Championship game wouldn't be new to this crew. And certainly going on the road wouldn't be new to this crew. I'll take the veterans, especially in a year where it looks like you're not going to have to deal with the 3 teams that have been the problem, which, I mean, they've taken care of Baltimore when they've faced them in the playoffs twice, but Cincinnati isn't going to be there. The Chiefs aren't going to be there, more than likely. Maybe one of them maybe the Ravens or Chiefs sneak in somehow, but it seems unlikely. It looks like you're going to have one elderly quarterback in Pittsburgh, and then you're going to have one veteran in his prime quarterback, and then you're going to have some kids. And I like my chances there. I like Josh Allen looking around going, oh, I guess I'm the adult here, other than Grandpa Rodgers. But I don't think Grandpa Rodgers has a team built to advance very far in the playoffs, so if they even get there. So I don't know. I feel all right. But yeah, this is massive. I'm old enough. I've been around enough of these seasons where my highs don't get too high and my lows don't get too low over the course of the year. But get me to mid-December with a chance to stay alive for the division, and not just stay alive for it, but really put yourself in there and make the Patriots question a little bit about what they're doing and make them wonder, oh, okay, I get it. We like Drake May, but he ain't Josh Allen. Like, make all that stuff happen. I am pumped for Sunday more than I have been for any game this year, of course, and I would imagine most people are, but I control my emotions on this. I have a feeling this will be a pacing around the family room watching the game type of thing rather than just sitting in the recliner nodding when things go the Bills' way.
What you're describing, it seems to me like your blood pressure leading into this game is hovering around Dick Duran level of excitement. That's because no one ever kept themselves from the highs getting too high more than Dick Duran. And I think that's kind of where you're at. Yeah,
I thought you were about to make a Peck joke.
No.
Duran.
No, just a Dick Duran.
You want to know? Hold on. No, let's stick with Dick Duran.
Go ahead.
Let's stick with Dick Duran because I actually had a thing written down about him. It's in my phone somewhere. But last night I was on YouTube, and when I go to log into YouTube, it always asks me if I want to log in as Brad Riter or as Buffalo Main Event. Do you remember Buffalo Main Event? Do you know what that is? You don't have to. It's fine.
No.
It's a TV show that I did.
Oh, yes.
With Bob Gahn. And last night I was like, I'm going to log in as that. And I watched some of the show that we did. And at some point I was thinking about, as we're leading into Christmas, I wasn't going to do it for today, but as we're leading toward Christmas, I was thinking about starting a thing on the show called the Bradvent calendar. And on the Bradvent calendar, we would open up little gifts every day, and the gifts would come from the past because I've got so many things in the archives. I forgot that we did this TV show. Not only did I forget we did it, I remembered doing it in the fall during a football season. I didn't realize we did it from like September through April or something, and all of the episodes are online. Somehow, despite the fact that it was 2007 and it was shot entirely digitally, the first episode that I watched looked like something that came off of like a VHS tape I used to tape Friday night videos off of NBC in 1982. It looked so bad. That said, it was not that much different from the show that we're doing now. It's just that we had to go into a studio and use all this high-tech digital equipment. But then listening to the content. So 07 is the year where J.P. Lossman and Trent Edwards were battling for the top spot, and Edwards started out hot, but then he had the concussion, and then he came back and played well against the Chargers, but then he was shot after that, and it was this battle back and forth between these two pop gun quarterbacks in Edwards and Lossman, and there's Bob and I talking. It sounds just like the conversation I had with him this week, listening to stuff, except replace Sean McDermott with Dick Duran. I just hadn't thought of Dick Duran's name in so long, and there's Bob and I on television 18 years ago arguing. We're the same people, except there's no gray hair. And I remember at that time thinking, oh man, looking back 10 years, how much better I looked then. And now it's just, that's crazy. It's 18 years ago, but if you listen, if you just had the audio, it sounds the same, and the conversations are the same. We closed each show with a little mini rant. My rant was about the meteorologists freaking people out because they predict a blizzard and it doesn't come, and when they don't predict one, it does come. It's completely appropriate. Still, 18 years removed, even with Doppler radar's improvements over time, I think that will probably be one of the doors we open on the Bradvent calendar, which I plan to debut next week. But Dick Duran might be involved. We can go back to you now, but you just triggered something in my head because I saw that last night.
Well, that's an important update.
Yeah.
We want to know the Bradman calendar is coming.
Yeah,
so that was, yeah. I was just going to say, just kind of sticking in the NFL, and I know you mentioned there in previous segments about how Phillip Rivers is coming back.
Yeah.
At, what is it, 45?
I think 44.
That seems real unsafe. That seems real unsafe. It seems like he's treating this like a YMCA game. He's like, yeah, I can still sling it. Yeah, I want to get out there with the boys. Yeah. And it's like whenever that happens in a pickup game, someone always gets hurt. But this is the NFL. So someone's definitely going to get hurt.
Someone always gets hurt anyway. And now if we got to pick somebody out of the 22 on the field, might it be the grandfather?
Yeah, it seems really unsafe. And not just the age, it's the time off. That's the time away from the game. Now, I mean, I know that there might be a slight advantage in that he's running the same offense because he's coaching one of his kids' high school teams and running the same offense. So there
Yeah,
is some familiarity there.
yeah.
But I'm talking physically, this is a real stupid decision from both parties.
I can't believe he's
This is real
44.
dumb.
I can't believe it's not. I can believe 44. I can't believe he's been gone for 5 years. Honestly, I saw that he was signing to the practice squad, and I thought that makes sense. He was there a couple years ago, as they've been kind of cycling through quarterbacks. But I went and looked. His last game was the playoff game against the Bills. That's a long time ago. That's five. It'll be 5 years in January. And man, I like what were you doing then? And if you haven't done that was pandemic time. I was playing the piano quite a bit, you know, and if somebody today was like, hey, the Black Crowes are on tour and their piano guy, their keyboard guy can't make it. Brad, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I did that fairly well, kinda 5 years ago. I mean, I wasn't in my prime, but I was okay. But yeah, after 5 years not doing it, I'll come out there. I mean, the difference is nobody attacks the Black Crowes while they're on stage. Nobody's hitting you. Nobody's trying to take your head off. But I just think nothing I did 5 years ago and then haven't done since translates into me being able to do that now.
Right. And it's especially something this physical. It is also funny to see. I saw this morning some people have posted on Twitter what because he's actually in now on a roster, Madden has put him in,
Ooh.
and how they made him physically look in Madden. They made him very fat and very slow. And it's a really funny,
that
really
sucks.
funny situation to see. So I don't know. I think it's really irresponsible for both parties. He's got 13 kids. He's got responsibilities here. This isn't a guy that's got nothing else going on.
Mouths to feed.
Maybe you look at it that maybe he's trying to get a couple extra shekels here. I don't know. But it just seems like a bad idea. Sticking with quarterbacks, on the other side of somebody willing to play at 44 seems to be Joe Burrow and his comments this week.
What did he say?
He said, I'm going to paraphrase here. This sucks, and it's not fun playing football. And I would like it to be fun again, but it's not. And he's starting to sound an awful lot like Andrew Luck sounded when he left. And if you start to look at the numbers, he has been sacked more in his career than Andrew Luck and has played in 13 less games than Andrew Luck. He's been sacked over 200 times. I mean, even if you remember the run they made to the Super Bowl, remember they got there because he was getting sacked 7 times a game, and they were still able to win some of those games. I think that this is setting up for an offseason where we could see him want to make a change. And that would be seismic. And it's going to be interesting because the Bengals also have a very recent history of saying no to their star quarterback when he'd like to leave, in Carson Palmer, who you remember was so adamant that he wasn't going to play, had to retire for a year, sat out an entire year.
Yeah.
And
I forgot about that.
Them to finally trade him to Arizona, lost a year off of his career. And that is why, before signing the big contract that Burrow did, he was very public, Carson Palmer was, in saying, don't sign that contract. Get out. Get out now. Get out. Do not do that. And this is why. Because there just really isn't the commitment from the Bengals and the ownership family. Like, they just got an indoor facility 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. They were the only team that didn't have that option. And they they just don't invest in it. They don't care. They're there to get the money. They're not really there to win games. And he's just out there getting constantly injured and hit. And as he said, this isn't fun anymore. And just thinking about it, I know there was a lot yesterday. I saw a lot of, well, the Jets have all these picks, specifically all these first round picks, and do need a quarterback. Would they be able to convince Burrow and then also the Bengals to pry him away and say, we will give you the 6 first round picks that we have over the next 2 years and make a deal happen? And to me, that doesn't seem viable, because I think if you're going to trade somebody like Burrow, not only that talented, but also a local kid from Athens, raised in Athens, 3 or 4 years at Ohio State before transferring to LSU. You're going to have to get something back considerable and probably in the quarterback realm. So then you start to think about who right now would be in a position to do something like that. And then I think to the sad refrains of our good friend John Fuller this week.
Oh my.
And his dealings with Jalen Hurts this year. And I think it's not really the Jets that would be in that consideration. I think it would be more along the lines of the Eagles that would be in the conversation for that. It's an NFC team, and would they be willing, that is, to accept some picks? The Eagles have 8 picks in the first 5 rounds coming up in this next draft. But more importantly, they could offer back a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Could you make that move? And also the Eagles, obviously a place that has a long history of consistent, good offensive line play and a commitment to run the football in Saquon Barkley. I think you could probably pretty easily get Joe Burrow to say, yeah, okay, I could be down with not getting hit 80 times a game.
Yeah.
And I think that to me seems like more of a deal that could go down than just the Jets giving all these picks, because then it becomes a situation where I'm going to give you this Joe Burrow, and then you're going to give me back all these picks. And if I'm lucky, one of these picks is going to be Joe Burrow. So why would I trade Joe Burrow? I already have Joe Burrow. Like, you would hope that those 6 picks add up to somebody as good as the guy that you already have. So I think that there has to be a player there. And the Eagles aren't really necessarily thrilled with Jalen Hurts right now. Neither are the fans. That whole situation is odd. And also for Burrow's sake, they have 2 really good wide receivers. You would say, Burrow's not getting much protection, but he does have Higgins and Chase. Well, you could go to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with Saquon and a better offensive line. I don't know. That to me seems like it's more realistic that if a deal would get done, that would make more sense to me than just Jets.
It's 2 proven guys who've shown they can be near the top level of quarterback in the NFL, both of whom really seem to need a change of scenery. Just start with that part and then add in everything that you just said, and it makes total sense, and it's super interesting, and it would get him out of the conference, which I'm okay with, because when you started talking about the Jets, and I'm thinking about, while I don't fear Drake May yet, I plan to deal with him. Like, we're gonna need a plan there for the next several years. And if Burrow were to wind up in the division, I'd be thinking that too. And then how stupid do the Dolphins feel hanging out with this Tua experiment if the AFC East consists of those 3 quarterbacks and Tua? So that part scared me. Him in Philly is a super exciting, interesting, power type of move that I hadn't thought of, but I'm glad you brought it up because it's interesting. And John Fuller says he listens every day. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if I start getting texts from him, either telling you to shut up or telling you to keep going. I'm not positive. I haven't looked at my phone. I'm going to do that.
I don't think that he would. I don't think he would be upset about getting Joe Burrow.
Well, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what to think about Hurts, and if you don't know what to think about your quarterback, it's not right. I mean, it's rare that to live in a city with the extremes that we've had at quarterback. Like when you're watching, Thad Lewis, you're like, yeah, I don't think this is the guy. And then you get Josh Allen, you're like, well, this is clearly the guy. The Bills are among a very select group of teams that do not have to think about that position at all. And we haven't had to think about it for 7 or 8 years now, which is awesome. The Eagles won the Super Bowl last year with a guy who was a big part of it. But I don't know if it's just a product of Philly, if that's just the way that the fan base and the media work, where they're going to come at you for a not great, although just fine, follow-up season after a Super Bowl win. It was a bad game. It's a bad week to talk to Philly fans about Hurts.
Well, as a Giants fan, first of all, I totally hate this move, because that would suck for a Giants fan to have to deal with Joe Burrow and everybody else. But it is the type of aggressive move that the Eagles have become known for from the front office here for the last 3 or 4 seasons. And really even beyond that, back to when they went to the Super Bowl and lost and then just recycled it and said, this isn't going to work. They kind of got a major dump of talent, bit the bullet on a season, and then came back and hit on all their draft picks and were good right away again. So, this is not something that's out of the realm of a possibility. And like you said, I think 2 guys, yes, Burrow is from there, but he's also had his house broken into.
Right.
He's
also been a Bengal. He's also been stuck as a Bengal for this long. I remember 20 plus years ago talking about the Bengals compared to other teams in the league. And it was like, there's a guy, what was his name? Jeff Hobson, I think. He's a friend of Jerry Sullivan, and he was a beat writer in Cincinnati and then became like their Chris Brown, like not play-by-play guy, but like the media guy for the Bengals. And I think he was the guy that we talked to a lot. And he's like, look at your team. How big is your scouting department? Like, I don't know, there's 25, 26 guys in there, something like that. He's like, we have 2. The Bengals at the time had 2 scouts. Now, perhaps they've expanded. Perhaps with technology, they've shrunk it down to 1. I don't know. But it has been the reputation of that team, and it's been the same ownership forever. It's Mike Brown the whole time, son of Paul Brown. That reputation has been there the whole time. So if you go to Cincinnati, you want to get out of Cincinnati. And it predates the Carson Palmer thing you were talking about. It's longer ago than that they've just been operating as if they're on a shoestring budget when clearly they're not. That said, the amount of money that they've poured into, with the amount of money they poured into Chase and then Higgins, it's tough to say that they're not financially supporting their guy. It seems like they're just doing it incorrectly. Like we spent a lot of time talking about whether or not the Bills have done enough at the wide receiver position. The reality is the quarterback's the guy. Protect him, and we'll figure it out from there. At least that's been the approach for the Bills, and I think that's worked out better for them than the approach of loading up at the wide receiver position has for the Bengals with Burrow.
Yeah, game is still won in the trenches, period. It's still won and lost in the trenches. So if you have a choice between getting an all-world wide receiver or an all-world offensive lineman, I would still pick the offensive lineman because they're going to help you in more ways than just getting the wide receiver. But I just, it was interesting to see him be that. Now I know they're coming off of a tough loss, and he threw the 2 picks on back-to-back plays, and it's been a rough season. He's been dealing with injuries. So, there's probably a little bit of emotion in those comments just from that. But, it's not something that you can ignore when you see mega stars like Andrew Luck, even Barry Sanders say, I'm done. This isn't fun anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done dealing with this. Because the Lions were kind of in a similar situation where they were viewed in the same way that the Bengals were, which is just kind of, half-assing it, not really fully invested. And and treating it more as just like a fun thing rather than an actual business. So, I don't know. That's at least something to keep an eye on here in the future, and especially how this season ends. I think that if the Bengals are able to kind of piece it together a little bit, win a couple of games, maybe he starts to feel better about it and his whole attitude changes. But there's a very real possibility that he doesn't, because no matter how much he does offensively, their defense still stinks, and they they can't stop anybody. I mean, last week, yes, he threw the pick six and then had another interception. It's really hard to watch that game and put it all on him when they're out there scoring 35 points. Flacco was doing the same thing. Joe Flacco was in that offense and scoring 38 points a game and losing by 3 points. So, it's not just Burrow.
All right, I got a couple options here. You're a college football guy. Nick McMillan, Bulls wide receiver, enters the portal this week along with a couple others, but that's the main one. There's also the Michigan football situation. Is either one of those interesting enough for you to talk about?
Well, I'm sad about Nick. That stinks. But still, again, this is part of the thing. Bulls still have an opportunity to try and rally and re-recruit him. Just because he's in the portal doesn't mean he's definitely gone. It just means that he can talk to other schools. So, we saw Kobe Stewart last year going to the portal, and we all thought, man, that stinks. And he said, you know what? I like it. I like it here. And I'm just going to stay.
We saw Dolak leave and come back without ever really doing anything at Utah State. It happened.
Right.
Change at coach. That was different. But, yeah, it would be nuts. It would be part of it. It would be nuts. That's the whole part of it. It would be nuts for McMillan to just be like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I'll stay here, knowing that, like you said, all he has to do is sign something, and now he can field offers. You don't have to say yes to one, but you can field them. So it's not crazy. I mean, I don't anticipate that he sticks around. I just don't want to see this lead to a cascade of players walking away. And so far, it's been limited. Compared to other teams, and compared to certainly what we saw last year was a whirlwind of activity in college football, and the Bulls were mostly able to hold pat. That had a lot to do with all of the winning that happened last year, and guys kind of looking at each other going, let's make another run at this. But I fear sort of a domino effect. Once someone defects, someone else goes, he could do it, I could do it, and you set the precedent that this is what we're doing this year. So I'm a little fearful of what's going to happen over the remaining time that the portal is open.
Right. And again, the Bulls have been very good at retaining the talent, but I think you also need to understand that this is also happening at every other MAC school. Like the Miami, Ohio got blown out in the championship game, and basically in the locker room, their leading receiver and defensive end were both like, yeah, I'm going to the portal. So just to let everybody know. This is happening across Group of Five. The one thing, again, I say it every year, sometimes it's better to grow where you've been planted, with people that believe in you, that are willing to develop you, and that you're definitely going to be playing. If you look at the number of players, there's crazy statistics out there. It was something like, of all the guys that went in the portal last year, only 40% ended up actually playing this year. So, you're talking about a situation for a lot of these guys where, yeah, they're making some money, but they're ruining the opportunities that they have down the line to keep playing, because they're not in games. They're just backups where they could stay someplace and be a star. But again, it's very hard for me to tell anybody to say, if you're being paid six figures for a year to be a backup at a Big Ten school, it's very hard to tell a kid, don't do that. I mean, that's a lot of money. I don't know. I'm a pretty loyal guy. I don't know what I would have done in that situation. But as far as from a fan perspective, and I think from a developmental perspective, for a lot of these guys, it is not going to benefit them going into the portal. There are some guys that are going into the portal that will go down. And I think that it will work out for them. And I think that those are the right reasons. Saying, I've been here for 2 years, I'm not going to play. I'm going to drop down a level. So in a place and a level that I know I will definitely be on the field and I can play. It's the ones with the hope that they can go up that I think are the ones that have to really think about it and make that choice. Because again, the most important thing in the end is getting on the field and playing and developing. And sometimes you're not going to be able to do that.
Well, that's the most important thing if you're trying to be a professional football player. If you know full well that there is no next level for you and you have the opportunity to what is essentially go pro for a year and then go work in your field of study that you've put in, or go work at a, you know, a fast food restaurant, whatever it is. Like if you can set yourself up at college age with a six-figure income for one season, knowing full well the NFL's not coming calling. Now, they all have dreams. They all think if I go to this bigger school, they're going to pay me and I'm going to showcase my talents and that I can make the real money. But the money that's being paid to college kids is real money. So basically, you're being offered a job. It's, I dropped out of school to take a job because it made more sense for me. That's essentially like one way to look at it that I haven't heard anybody talk about. If you're not going to the NFL, you know you're not going to the NFL, and somebody says, hey, for your final year, do you want to play for free at Buffalo? The last year you're ever going to play football. You want to play for free at Buffalo, start, be a star. Or come to my school, compete for a spot. You might lose out. We got a lot of 4 stars in this building, but we're going to give you $500,000 to try. You might end up on the bench, but now you don't play. That stinks. Your career ended a year earlier than you wanted it to. You're still practicing. You're still around the team. You still get to go on the trips. You still might go to the college football playoff or some other cool bowl game. But we're going to pay you to do that. So it's, would you like a job to drop out of school is kind of the dirty opportunity that's unspoken in this whole thing for somebody who's not taking $500,000 to hopefully make $8 million the following year. They're just taking the $500,000 job, hoping to land a $50,000 job the following year. So that the finances really mess with the psychology of the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's a really hard decision. What appears to not be a hard decision was one day by Ward Manuel getting rid of Sharon Moore, who it's really a sad situation all around. It's certainly interesting to look in from the outside, but in our perspective, in our situation, and the number of years that we have been around in college football, and being at a hotel bar and talking to coaches and seeing some of these guys and talking to everybody every week, I think that we have a more clear vision of the fact that these are human beings, that our coaches, they have an interesting job and they have one-track minds, and they are certainly different mindsets, but they are still human beings. And this guy just blew up his family, his dream job, a job that he didn't really earn. It's not like he had been a head coach anywhere. He just kind of lucked into being the head coach at a top 10 program, a legacy program, and he just gave it all away. He just fumbled it so bad. And it's like that, and the family, and everything else. And it's like, whew, you feel bad. Now you can't defend going to somebody else's house and threatening to kill him. Don't feel bad about that. But
that wasn't until after he got fired.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of reports coming out now that he's kind of been mentally unstable for this season.
Yeah.
That I think are going to start coming out, and we're going to start seeing a little bit more of. That he that at the time just might have looked like, all right, we dealt with Harbaugh. He was eccentric. This guy's got a different cut of his jib, that now with recent developments start to look different, start to have quite a different tone. I think we're going to start seeing some of that, but it's in the words of Booger McFarland, it's undefeated, man.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
It is undefeated, and he's in the office, and my man couldn't keep track of it. And this is, when you look back at the history of college football, there's a lot of this kooky, crazy stuff. And this is definitely going to be up there. This is definitely a top 10 bag fumble of all time. Of all time. He lucked into inheriting a national championship blue blood program as a head coach, making millions and millions of dollars a year, and gave it all away to have a couple of hookups. And then gets busted because the Uber driver who was there dropping off the plan B says something to somebody, and then it becomes a whole big thing.
Yeah.
So, it's an all-time mistake by a guy.
Did you see the Nick Saban quotes that have popped up from his book in the last couple days?
Yes.
Unbelievable. 'Cause I started thinking about the McFarland thing, and I didn't feel like saying it. So then I was like, I could say the Saban thing. And then you said the McFarland thing, although you danced around it a little bit, but I'm proud of you for that. Here is the quote from the Saban book. It's called Saban, The Making of a Coach. Saban initially said in the team talk, which is resurfaced on social media in the wake of the scandal surrounding the fired Michigan coach. Here's the quote. Ultimately, you don't want to be out there chasing after midnight. If you haven't locked it up by midnight, it's not worth it. This is why this dude is one of the greatest coaches in the history of sports.
Yes.
Like, it's not just football, it's life. He goes on to say, ultimately, you never want to sleep with anybody who has less to lose than you do. So ultimately, if I'm ever going to sleep around on Miss Terry, it's going to be with Hillary effing Rodham Clinton. That's amazing. How do you think to say that? That's amazing. I have more respect for Saban after that than I do after his, multiple national titles. That's awesome. That's a leader of men.
Right. And he's in there in a situation. He did a couple he brought in a couple of high profile people that I think were along the same lines, because he's dealing with 18 to 22-year-old men that are very high profile where they are, very high profile. And that all really, if you're on that team, you have the possibility of becoming a mega star in the NFL and making hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think him understanding that and being able to say and very open about the fact that we need to talk about this and have this lesson is incredibly valuable. And he's right. Nothing that I ever closed after midnight was anything that I would ever want to talk about publicly. You know what I mean? I think that's a pretty universal thing, and he's dead on right. And I think that he's right about, guys, you have a lot to lose. If you're in this room, you have a lot to lose, and putting yourself and exposing yourself to people that don't have that is a bad situation, because they don't care. You do, but they don't, and it's going to be a bad situation for you. And this is, unfortunately, bad decision making here by Sharon Moore, who I think it's going to be safe to say he's going to go from being the head coach of Michigan
to nothing.
He will never coach again. So
as a head coach or at all, you think? It might be nothing at all.
No, I don't think he'll ever. I don't think he'll ever coach in college again.
He didn't do enough as the head coach at Michigan to make it so that an athletic director and a school president and whatever could just overlook it and be like, well,
right.
He's had enough success that we think he's rehabilitated. We think he'll be fine now. Like, you haven't done enough to earn that, and that hurts. I want to dwell on the Saban quote again real quick, and I want your opinion on this. Because it really hit me when you said close after midnight, because I started thinking about living in Buffalo where bars close at 4 a.m. I think you might have to adjust in the way that you have to adjust for like box office gross based on ticket prices when you're analyzing which movie is the biggest of all time, like that kind of thing. Adjusted for inflation or adjusted for bar hours. If Nick Saban gave the same speech, picture Buffalo as a football powerhouse, and Saban's here, and he's won national titles, and he's awesome. And all we care about in this town is the UB Bulls and their regular, consistent success that puts them in the hunt for a title every year. And he's our guy, and he's considered one of the greatest coaches in the history of sports. And he's here, and he gives that same speech, knowing that bars close at 4. Would he say it has to be locked down before midnight, or would this translate? Because Alabama, I just looked it up, most bars close at 2. So he's saying you got to lock it down at least 2 hours before closing time. Would that translate into anything not locked down before 2 if he gave that speech in Buffalo? I think it might be halfway in between because, I don't think 12:15 a.m. in Western New York is too late to maybe create a spark, But I do think that, 3:15, anything that ever happened at 3:15 is regretful in my younger life. I don't feel like 12 to 12:30 is a dark range when you're playing the game of the Western New York bar scene.
Right. As two people that have lived that, I think that Saban in that situation is still an old school midnight guy. I think he's a strictly midnight guy, no matter what the situation would be. I think that adjusted for the inflation of hours
Yeah.
in Buffalo, I think you're probably 1:30 to 2. Anything, if you haven't closed down shop there by then, I think you're starting to tiptoe into the bad decisions. So yeah, I would agree with you there.
Because I'm thinking about Geneseo. Geneseo was 2 a.m. closing time. We didn't get to the bar till midnight sometimes. I mean, what's the point of going if everything after midnight's bad? Or maybe that is the point of going, that everything after midnight's bad, so you wait till midnight because you're trying to get the bad stuff. I don't know. I'm just midnight seems early. As a cutoff, it seems early.
I'm thinking about several St. Patrick's days from my time.
Well, that's if you don't lock it down after or before noon, you did it wrong on St. Patrick's Day.
Right. And I remember my friends being able to successfully convince me to. They basically gave me the drunk version of the Saban speech, and saved me a time. And I remember walking and agreeing with them and leaving the apartment building and walking back down several flights of stairs. And as I got to the bottom of the stairs, there was another guy checking in, and I heard him say what room he was going to. And it's the room that I had just turned down. And I was like, wow, that was a great decision.
Wow.
That was a fantastic decision.
Yeah.
That I just made. So, yeah, these talks need to be had sometimes.
You need the veteran. You need the veteran presence.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need a Nick Saban type to say, "Listen,
We'll do that.
Don't do that. Just don't. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this."
All right. Is there anything else that we need to get to? We've gone long, but we started late because the phone wasn't working. So,
well, I'll give you my pick.
Oh yeah,
I know Arbo in the chat asked what my record on picks is this year.
Undefeated.
And yeah,
because we only
as far
talk about
as
the wins.
I know, I've got 6 wins, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're winning forever after that. I'm at 500. We're 6-6-1 officially.
You had a winner last week that we forgot to get to, but you sent it to me.
I had a winner last week in Western Michigan. So this week, I'm going to take the Montana Grizzlies because I can. I'm going to take Montana at home in Missoula, 7.5 point favorites against South Dakota. Weather will not be a factor in that game because both of them play in that weather, but Montana's a far better team. South Dakota has kind of skated through. They have been hot recently here, but I think Montana's a better team, got a better offense that they're going to be able to score fairly regularly. I like them winning by more than a touchdown there. They are in the quarterfinals of the FCS. Also, just want to keep an eye on UC Davis, 2.5 point favorites against Illinois State. I like Davis there. Illinois State last week pulled a massive upset, knocking off North Dakota State in the Fargo Dome when North Dakota State was undefeated. Well, I think they had one loss because they played an FBS team, but they were number 1 in the country and by far and away long odd major odd favorites to win the national championship. And Illinois State scored a late touchdown to win by 1 last week. I think there's going to be a little bit of a hangover there for the Redbirds. UC Davis, 2.5. I kind of like that as well. I'm sticking though. My main pick is Montana.
I like it. You've been complimented in the chat for looking at the chat. It says, what a guest. Checking chat. Scott the man.
Gotta check chat.
That's from Nick.
Always check chat.
Always check chat. Now I can check chat. I couldn't check chat for a while because I've got too many things on the screen, but I figured out how to get the chat in its own little thing next to the screen that I look at to make sure it's all working. So the chat is useful, and people can actually interact now rather than sending a text to a phone that's sitting over there or sending it to a screen that's hidden behind that. I've got it on the screen at all times. Doesn't mean I'll react in real time to it, but everything that's there I'll see, and then at the end of the show I'll go back and read all of it. So if you're putting something in there, know that it will be seen for sure by me. It will be seen by other listeners, and it will be seen by guests who pay attention, like the great Scott Wilson, who joins us twice a week. Thank you for your time once again, Scott, and we'll talk to you on Monday after this Bills-Patriots game and whatever the hell else happens over the weekend.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. For Scott Wilson, to wrap things up, on episode 225 of Riter Radio, live 10 to noon, Monday through Friday, and then available as a podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. So be sure to check those out if you missed any portion of it or you miss a day. It's all there. Please like and subscribe. That's the big push right now, is liking and subscribing. And you click the little bell so you get a notification. But the more of that we do, the better it is for everyone. The chat has been very lively. We've only had that up and running for the last couple of days, but that's been cool. And even if I'm not reacting to everything that's going on in there, I love that there are conversations happening between listeners. You don't need me for all of this. We're all friends here. We're all just hanging out. I just happen to be kind of, pushing buttons and talking into a microphone. But the show is yours as much as it's mine. So be a part of it in the chat. And again, like, subscribe, share. Spotify and YouTube are the two big places. Do whatever you got to do. Watch it where you want, listen where you want. But the numbers that I'm trying to build are in those two specific platforms, YouTube and Spotify. So you are helping me. If you listen every day and have not yet subscribed on both of those, now would be a great time to do that. I'd love to see just an influx of numbers as we build. The more numbers we get, the more numbers we'll get. It works exponentially, but it's a slow, steady process that at some point is just going to go boom, and we're going to be everywhere we need to be. Lots of exciting things coming up. Lots of exciting conversations being had and plans being made into the new year, and we'll unveil some of those. I think Monday we'll debut the Bradvent calendar as we're counting down to Christmas, where I'll get you a little gift every day. Open up a box, we'll get a little gift. Maybe I'll build a graphic for it. I don't know. I don't know that we need that. I think just the term Bradvent calendar is interesting enough, and I found some cool old audio and video. As I mentioned, I found video of the TV show I did with Bob Gond 18 years ago, all of which is online. We've got interviews with people who are no longer with us. I saw our guest list was awesome. And then there were some where I didn't even remember. Like, I'm looking at one. If you ask me, I would say, no, I've never met Mark Kelso. But then there's a video online of me sitting next to Mark Kelso and Bob Gond talking to Mark Kelso. The late Alan Wilson was a guest on there. The late Roddy McKissick was a guest on there. Jerry Sullivan was on there. Joe Mahalik, the old Niagara coach. Mike McDonald was on there. We had a lot of good guests over I don't know, maybe we did 20 episodes or something like that. But pretty cool to rediscover that. And I might pop some of those historical documents into our Advent calendar. And also what was cool, the final segment of every one of those shows, and let's say we did 20 or maybe it was 18 episodes. That means there are 18 like 1 minute long rants from me and from Bob. We called it commentary, but each show would end with Bob talking about one thing and then me talking about one thing, or vice versa. And those were kind of cool to bounce through. So I might bring some of those back as part of the Bradvent calendar as we count down to Christmas. I haven't figured out the schedule yet as far as what we'll do surrounding. For sure, there won't be a show on Christmas Eve. For sure, there won't be a show on Christmas Day. Other than that, I'm not sure. I don't, as of right now, intend to take a full week off like I did at Thanksgiving. But with the kids home the whole time, and I don't know. We'll see. But I can tell you that next week will be totally normal. Monday, episode 226 comes your way at 10 o'clock. You'll hear Scott Wilson again. He joins us twice a week. Not sure what else. I have a feeling we'll open talking about the current situation, the then current or soon to be current. What's the word I'm looking for? The situation as of then. It's the Bills and the Patriots is the point I'm trying to make. If the Pats win, they win the division. If the Bills win, the Bills are very much alive to win the division. It has been pointed out to me in the chat by the great Ray Walter that the Ravens game doesn't mean anything aside from giving the Bills the ability to lose to Philly. You still are going to need either the Jets or Dolphins to beat the Patriots. But unless you are a brand new fan to the NFL, you know how that stuff goes down. Like, if you're rooting for a team to lose and they're playing against a team that they shouldn't lose to, you're hoping it's a divisional matchup. Those things get crazy. It's not quite throw out the records, but it's kind of throw out the records on those divisional games. So, yeah, I think the Patriots are clearly better than the Dolphins. I think they're clearly better than the Jets. But if you can spook them a bit with a victory this Sunday, bring them back to reality a little bit to recognize they've got some work to do here. Not just to get the 1 seed, but to win the division. I like the chances of either the Jets or the Dolphins coming to play, making that game their Super Bowl. Hey, we could really mess with this team's season. We can screw them up. We can stop them. And it's not like the Jets or Dolphins are like, yeah, we're going to help the Bills. But you just hate the team that's in front of you. And if you see them twice a year, you hate them more. And you got better knowledge of their personnel and their scheme. So I will gladly take a Patriots matchup where I need them to lose, Jets or Dolphins, rather than playing the Raiders or playing the Titans or playing the whoever else, the Cardinals. A team that doesn't matter, that doesn't wake up every day thinking about the stupid Patriots. Give me a team that thinks about the Patriots all the time in one of those games. Bills have to do their job, and that starts with a win on Sunday. Go Bills! Let's see it all happen, and then we'll reconvene at 10 a.m. for episode 226 of Riter Radio, brought to you by Brian Janik at thefinancialguys.com. Thank you for listening, sharing, liking, subscribing, all the things. We will talk to you real soon. Talk to you Monday. Thank you. Bye.